I always love having a Levitical text for sermons because we all love that book so much, almost as much as Numbers from last week. But I chose that one, and actually I could have chosen any one of the first 11 chapters of Leviticus. This one had a lot less, blood in it. To talk to you about ritual. And this is the ritual of the grain offering when it's given at the temple. And rituals are just regular, everyday parts of our lives and of our worship. And sometimes I don't think we understand really what they are and what they do. So by definition, and this is why I chose this particular text, a ritual is an act or series of acts that are regularly repeated in a set, precise manner, usually done in conformity with social custom and normal procedure. So we have these, for the Jews, and when they're making offering at temples, if that's not a set procedure to list out exactly how step A, B, C, and D are supposed to go, I don't know what is. When we have communion later, there will be certain words that aren't always said. That's a ritual. And most people, I think, don't really think about rituals at all, and so they don't recognize the ones that they have. And everybody does have them. And everybody does respond to them. For example, with personal rituals. For those of you that still do, or for those of you who can remember back then, when you get up in the morning to get ready to go to work, I'm willing to bet you have a ritual that you don't know is a ritual. There's probably a sequence of events that you do in order, the same way, every time, before you head out the door to work. If one is so inclined these days, or if you can again remember back to your youth and childhood, when you got ready for a date, you probably had a ritual. Hopefully it involved a shower. Maybe you have a ritual for getting ready for church on Sunday. Again, that normal pattern of things that you do every morning before church. Or when you do things that will help you prepare for something that's important to you. Now you see this a lot in athletes. If you watch pre-games at all, you'll see some of them have headphones on, some of them go sit underneath the goalpost, some of them are always doing, and they're going to do the same thing over and over and over again, because that's what they do to get ready for the game. We have birthday rituals. Or family rituals, family rituals including birthday celebrations. There's usually cake or something of somebody's favorite dessert, the birthday person's favorite dessert. Maybe there's singing, maybe there's a family gathering, or maybe it's just the people in the house. Whatever it is, you have things that are usually done. And if you have small children, if you don't do them, you're in trouble. We have holiday rituals. Sometimes, though, we call them traditions. Things that we expect, even just the sequence of events that occur. We don't open presents on Christmas Eve. Or you get to open one present on Christmas Eve and then the rest of them have to wait till the next day. Or whatever it might be, you have an order of events that this is how it's done in our house. Or maybe it's something as simple as just a prayer before meals. We have social rituals all the time. We all remember as children, what was the first thing we did to start the day in the classroom? Pledge of Allegiance. That's a ritual. Before a sporting event, the national anthem, which, by the way, did you know, wasn't officially there permanently until after World War II? A little bit of trivia for you. We have, in our modern world, as a transition into adulthood, we have high school graduation. And the fact that we have a reduced number of people going to church in our country on a regular basis, you can see that people really want the rituals of transitions in time, because now we have, of all things, preschool graduation, kindergarten graduation, elementary school graduation, middle school graduation, and high school graduation. We want rituals so bad we'll throw more in when we don't have the other ones. Now here's a ritual that I bet you didn't know was a ritual. The handshake. A psychological study found that two parties who shook hands before sitting down to negotiate had a higher frequency of trust in the other person. They were more cooperative with each other, and there was a higher chance of them coming to some kind of deal at the end of it. And of course, we have religious rituals. We have our own initiation rituals, baptism and confirmation. We have transitional rituals, funerals, last rites, weddings. But you didn't think of a wedding as a transitional ritual, did you? But remember, before, they're two, and at the end, they are one. We have rituals that mark time. Advent, Lent, Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving. Even the way that we worship is a ritual to us. What's included in the service or not? How do we sit? What are the interactions we have before and after? Where do we have the service? All of these things are part of a ritual for our Sundays. And rituals are very good things. One of the problems with being ADD is a thing I like to call rabbit holes. So when I start researching something, I can chase rabbits down the rabbit hole for a very long way. And I came across so many studies that show that people who engage in rituals on a regular basis have an increased sense of well-being, have an increased overall health, have an increased sense of order in their world, even amidst unpredictability and chaos. And within groups, it increases our sense of unity and meaning. Now, again, because most of the time we don't think of these things, some of you might be just kind of going, well, that's interesting stuff, but it doesn't really play or do anything in our everyday lives. I beg to differ. Allow me to give you a few examples. What happens if we change or alter even the slightest aspect of any ritual that we deem important? Studies have shown that it leads to an increase in frustration, negativity, anxiety, and in some cases, outright hostility. Again, you may not believe me. Have you ever missed your alarm in the morning? And had your morning ritual just disappear? How is the rest of your day? On a national level, not that long ago, we had a football player, Colin Kaepernick, everybody remember him? Who literally got the advice to do what he did from a group of Navy SEALs, by the way. But he took a knee during the national anthem. And the world lost its mind. Because he changed one aspect of the ritual. Have you ever shook somebody's hand and it was really like either wimpy or just like non-existent, like they just gave you their hand to shake for them? Or someone else who might come in and just come in really strong, like, I'm the dominant one here. That changes your attitude toward the person, doesn't it? I remember distinctly teaching our daughters, here is a proper handshake. It's going to be important. Because the handshake will set their mind on who you are. And then, if you think about worship, I have a couple of stories for you here. Dawn's already checking, she knows where I'm going with this one. At the second church that I served while I was in seminary in Ohio, I discovered that the pews were not bolted down. Somebody already groaned. And so I announced it in advance and said that for this period of time, and so I set up the sanctuary in 2 arcs with the altar in the center. And the idea was that we're looking at each other and kind of working and building community with the altar at the center of the worship. Now, even though I announced in advance what I was going to be doing, and told them that when the end was going to come, I had to have a special church meeting after worship one time because people were going crazy. And the name of the church was Powell Memorial United Methodist Church. And in the back, a hand goes up, Mrs. Powell. And when I said, what is the issue that you're having? Her response was, that's not worship. And I asked her what she meant by that. How is it not worship? And she didn't have words for it. And it occurred to me, much later, that the reason it wasn't worship was because it wasn't the ritual she was used to. It wasn't this formation. Where she sat was different. We made jokes about that, like somebody sitting in my pew. But it's true. Because it's part of your ritual. It's not that you're, terrible about it or like, that's mine, it belongs to me. No, it's your ritual. And if someone sits I used to do this in seminary during classes. I used to I would go 2 solid weeks, I would sit in the same place. And then starting week number 3, I would just randomly choose someone else's seat. Because it only takes a couple weeks to settle into this stuff. And to watch them come into the room and go, like, now where do I sit? I don't know, there's 70 other seats here. But it throws us off. We get frustrated, we get a little bit of negativity, and the anxiety. One of the studies I found said that if somebody pledges a fraternity and they don't do some of the more ritualistic things with the attitude they're supposed to have, that's when the outright hostility comes in and it gets bad for them. The other experience with the change in worship as ritual that drives us crazy was COVID. And I don't know how many people that were here left if you closed down during COVID. But there were several over at Heritage, I know that for sure. And they want to say it was about the fact, oh, we're safe and we're protected, or whatever excuse that they were using. But the truth of the matter was, it changed the ritual. It unsettled their world. And they went to someplace else, probably, that was still open because they still needed the ritual. And this has happened all over the place. I've heard stories all over the place about the anxiety or negativity or whatever it is that people, the words they used when describing why they would leave and go to some place that was still open. Because the ritual was disrupted. Now, I qualified that statement in the beginning, if you heard it, by saying that these responses in us come up in those rituals that we deem important. And I am an experimenter. Okay, my bachelor's degree is in biology. You want to know anything about box elder bugs? I'm your published guy to go to. Just to let you know how useless some would be. Anyway. But I changed the communion ritual. And no one batted an eye. Which is fine. Some things are deemed more important than others in every different community. It's fine. But on that first Sunday when I asked you one of the reasons why Amble decided not to merge with all the other churches to form Heritage, one of the answers I got was we don't want to get lost in a large congregation. Which means that we want a small, tight community where we know everybody and everybody knows us. And if we were to think about getting too large, then it starts getting problematic for us. Again, all fine. This is who we are. That's fine. It reveals the importance of being seen and known. The rituals that we do, and again, remind you that these are regular and structured things that we do, they define us. They express our identity. They express what's important to us and what we think are the right things to do and how they're supposed to be done. It's how people recognize each other as members of the same group. It is at the heart of our sense of hospitality, of family, of community. Rituals describe our faith and our beliefs. And rituals unite us in our acts of service and even our selection of them. I'm 3 months in here, so I haven't seen, the whole calendar year yet. I recognize that. But I've only noticed really one important ritual in both places that express themselves a little differently. Here it was, though, we don't want to get lost in a big church. So we like the small, tight unity of it, to be able to come in here and chat with everybody that we know and everybody that knows us. That's the true sense of belonging that people seek. Out in the world, we're nobody to just about everybody. But in here, we're somebody to everybody. That makes sense. But I haven't really seen any sense of ritual for sacred space or a sense of ritual about sacred time. Or seasons, which took me by surprise so far, I have to say. And I'm not real sure what that means yet. Again, haven't been here that long. But I'm thinking it's important. As I mentioned earlier, one of the rituals that we do is communion. And today is World Communion Sunday. So basically, the Global Council of Churches, which sounds really ominous, got together and decided that the first Sunday in October would be World Communion Sunday, and that every church everywhere in the world would agree that on that first Sunday of October, we would all have communion despite our normal traditions or rituals. And the whole point of it is because of things that I've already mentioned. Our solidarity as Christians. No matter what our other beliefs might be, this is one act we all partake in that unites us all the way around the world. And so, let's do our part.